Thank you for watching. I'm Leslie Foster. So the polls closed about, an hour ago, and the results are just starting to roll in. And you'll be able to see every race scrolling across the bottom of your screen. But tonight, we're focusing on all of the big races, and we'll have live reports from across the state. But first, this important note. So we are not likely to have all the results in tonight. So we need you to manage your expectations because mail-in ballots can't be counted until Thursday. And the State Board of Elections say they already got over 500,000 mail-in ballots as of Monday. Montgomery and Prince George's County were the top three, both in the top three for the most mail-ins. So we're going to check in with one of the big races, the race for Maryland governor, as Larry Hogan has reached his term limit. And for the Republican primary, you can see you got Dan Cox, you got Kelly Schulz, Robin Ficker, Joe Werner, all coming in with their percentage of the votes. Right now, Dan Cox is leading with 50% of the vote. But we're going to check in with one of the candidates fighting to replace Hogan, who he endorsed, and that's Kelly Schulz. Adam Longo is at her campaign watch party in Annapolis, where is it pretty festive out there, Ads?
It's getting there, Leslie. We're seeing a steady stream of people come into the room. The noise is amping up. The music is amping up. Kelly Schulz herself was here just about 45 minutes ago, mixing it up, mingling with folks in the room. So the energy definitely has been rising. But I got to whisper this. I don't want anyone to really hear me. Even though they're saying that this is a victory party, just to your point a second ago, can you really call it that when we don't truly expect for there to be a winner called in this race tonight, unless one candidate has just a massive advantage over the other? And why is that? Is because 50% of the votes cast in this race were either done through early voting or mail-in ballots. We had 212 mail-in ballots as of yesterday come in. So, and of course, they'll still be accepting those until tonight. So tonight's the last day for folks to get those in. So Republican voters here in Maryland are being asked the same question that Republican primary voters across the country are being asked, and that is, who do you approve of the most? Is it a Donald Trump-backed, Donald Trump-style candidate, or a more traditional, we could call it a pre-Trump style Republican candidate? The really only the polling that we have in this race was done the last week of June, and in that poll it showed both candidates, Dan Cox and Kelly Schulz, in basically a tie, where say the other half of people polled say they hadn't decided, or they could be up to basically change their mind. So a lot of these election nights that we go into, we say, hey, it could be a long night. This could be decided over the next few days, which is something that we'll have to pay attention to. I want to walk you through the room here real quick, just to give you a general sense of what's happening. We do expect Kelly Schulz to take to the podium at some point tonight and speak. But just through the room here in Annapolis, I can show you just back here. So this is filled with volunteers, with fundraisers, with supporters and other state officials. And it goes all the way back here. And then you've got folks all the way towards the back of the room here. So it is going to be a busy night, wild and crazy. I probably wouldn't go there and say that, but definitely, Leslie, you can feel the energy in the room growing. We probably expect to hear Kelly Schulz speak sometime in the 10 or 11 o'clock hour. Back to you.
All right, we'll come back to you in just a bit, but we're going to check in with one of the big challengers for the GOP primary for governor, Dan Cox. Matthew Torres is out in Emmitsburg, and Matt, we understand Dan Cox may be coming to the mic soon. Oh, he's there. Let's listen in.
We're excited. We won the early vote by 9 points, and right now with 25% in, we're up 9 points. So thank you for being here with us. We're going to take some time and come and say hello and look and watch these results come in. Thank you for being here. God bless. Thank you for all your help and your work.
Dan Cox, who wants to replace Republican Governor Larry Hogan, and our Matthew Torres is there. Matthew Cox just spoke, gave an early assessment of what he says is happening right now, and you've got a few more people around. This, he hopes, will be a victory party, but it's still early in the night.
Leslie, that's right. It's still too early, especially with the results coming in, but he is already declaring really some good news and some good remarks, as you heard just from the podium. It was just a few moments ago that he just spoke, but here he is just walking by here, just made its way here to the watch party in Emmitsburg. He is a state delegate that's representing portions of Carroll and Frederick counties, but as you can see, we do have some of his supporters already making their way in as they're greeting him and as they are excited for what may be ahead. Hopefully we can talk to him in just a moment after he makes his way around here to the room. But no doubt, this is going to be one of those close races, the Republican race for governor, especially now that he has the endorsement from former President Donald Trump, who urged people in Maryland to vote for him today, while also blasting Governor Larry Hogan and his endorsement for opponent Kelly Schulz. Now, Cox is a one-term state delegate who political experts say, because of Trump's backing, has made this race just a little bit more competitive. He really has also been touting some of those ultra-conservative values that we have heard, especially aligning with Trump. So that's what's really going to determine this race moving forward as far as what the election results will be. His platform has included defending the Second Amendment. He is against abortion at all costs. He is also against critical race theory in schools and standing against so-called gender indoctrination in schools. So those type of values that we have seen aligned with Trump. Meanwhile, it's going to be interesting what unfolds, especially as the Governor's Democratic Association has really poured in millions of dollars in ads highlighting Cox more than Schulz. And we have heard throughout the weeks now from Schulz and even Hogan that this is just some sort of tactic to put him more above her as far as getting those conservative voters, while at the same time playing it to their advantage when it comes to the general election, because early polls are showing that voters are leaning more towards Republicans like Hogan than that they are of Trump. So again, it's going to be a competitive race. We just saw Cox make his way here, still greeting many of the voters that have supported him, at least here in this room. So we'll have another update as we get results throughout the night.
Yeah, Cox called that Trump endorsement the endorsement of a lifetime. We'll have to see whether that gets him the GOP nomination. All right, we'll come back to you in a bit. Let's take a look at the Democratic primary for Maryland governor, where we had a huge field, right? And you can see here on the screen, Wes Moore, Tom Perez, Peter Franchot, Rashawn Baker, who suspended his campaign but didn't fully drop out, and Doug Gansler coming in. And you can see 37% of the vote for Wes Moore, 28% for Tom Perez, 21% for Peter Franchot. Those three really have been locked in sort of a dead heat for the past few weeks or so. Let's check in now with the Peter Franchot camp, and our Larry Miller is covering that campaign tonight in Bowie. You've got the headphones on. Looks like there's a lot of activity happening around you, Larry.
Yeah, Leslie, you're absolutely right. The activity here has certainly increased over the last 10 to 15 minutes. You can see a number of supporters here for the Peter Franchot campaign. Many of them say they feel really optimistic about what they're seeing thus far, even though polling right now shows the Wes Moore campaign with a commanding lead. They feel and are cautiously optimistic that they have the votes to secure the Democratic nomination for governor. If you looked at Peter Franchot's schedule today, he really was crisscrossing the entire state, but really paid attention to a couple of counties, Prince George's, Baltimore County, and even Montgomery County. And that really is where a lot of that Democratic base is throughout the state. When I had the opportunity to talk with members of the Franchot campaign just a minute ago, I asked them specifically, how do you feel about what's going on right now? How do you feel as we wait for those election results to come in? They tell me that they are confident and they are proud of their base and feel like their base is going to come out for them. But they've made a concerted effort to not just focus on those voters in those major counties like Baltimore County, Prince George's County, and Montgomery County, but really making sure they crisscross the state to touch as many voters as they possibly can. That's a similar strategy from what we've seen from both Tom Perez and Wes Moore. The thing with the Franchot campaign, however, is that they're really banking on name recognition, that since Peter Franchot has been in public office for decades, that voters in the state know him, they know his record, and that they'll feel comfortable with him as well. I do want to point out one thing about the ballot today, and at the top of the ballot, Leslie, as you mentioned, is Rashawn Baker, the former county executive for Prince George's County. He's at the top of the ballot. Now, he suspended his campaign several months ago, but still collecting a fair number of votes from voters who say that they would like to actually see him in office. So it is an interesting play, and we will see what type of impact that will have on both both Westmore and Tom Perez that have been trailing Franchot, at least on the polls that we've seen over the past couple of months. But they're in for a pretty exciting night. But when I checked in with all the campaigns, they're very clear. They don't expect a winner to be called tonight. They expect this to go on for days. Leslie?
Yeah, they expect it to go on for days, and you got an earful from voters that were willing to talk to you earlier today at the polls about the things that made them decide to vote for this particular campaign. All of it revolving around inflation. They said food was too high, gas was too high. They were concerned about crime, they're concerned about the climate, and they believe that this ticket is the one to get it done.
Leslie, you're right, and I think we have to be clear too that those weren't just issues that impacts Democratic voters, that there were issues of concern for Republican voters as well. And so they're looking for which of the candidates, especially on the Democratic side, of which there are 9, which of those 9 candidates is going to be the best person to help deal with these inflationary issues, because those are the type of kitchen table conversations that are happening, that are having direct impact on families throughout the entire state.
They sure are. All right, Larry, we'll check back in with you. We're going to head on over to the watch party for Tom Perez out at Tommy Joe's restaurant in Bethesda. Perez was first elected to a position in Montgomery County. He was a county council member and then became president of the council before moving on to become the Secretary of Labor under the Obama administration. So a crowd there gathered, and they are hoping for the best news possible for Tom Perez this evening. Again, we'll be watching that closely. Now, to the election to replace Peter Franchot as Maryland comptroller. And on the Democratic side, you've got Tim Adams running and Brooke Lehrman running, and so far she has 62% of the votes with 40% of the precincts reporting, and Tim Adams has 38% of the votes. He's the current mayor of Bowie. Now we take a look at the race for state's attorney and who will replace Brian Frosch, who decided not to seek re-election. On the Republican side, you've got Michael Perukta and Jim Shalik, and then Frosch's party, the Democrats. There are candidates both having ties to old Governor Martin O'Malley. First, his wife, Katie O'Malley, and Anthony Brown. Anthony Brown, let's go on back, please, if we could, who served as lieutenant governor for the state of Maryland and is now in the House of Representatives. So he's got 63% of the votes. Katie Curran O'Malley has 37% of the votes. All right, now, in terms of one of the Maryland Senate seats, the Associated Press has already called this race for the Democratic incumbent Chris Van Hollen against Michelle Smith. And then on the GOP side, to go up against that winner in November, here is who is showing up. And if we can slow that down just a little bit for me, you got Chris Chafee, George Davis, Nabu Easy, Lori Friend, Reba Hawkins, Joe McGreevy, Joseph Perez, Todd Puglisi, James Tarantine, and John Thorman. So very crowded races for some of these. Now, let's take a look at the huge race in Montgomery County for the county executive. On the Republican side, there's Shelley Skolnick running and Reardon Sullivan. And you can see no votes just yet and no reporting yet from any of those precincts. And then, of course, we look on the Democratic side. That is expected to be very tight. And again, we don't have any numbers yet, but we can say this is a matchup, really, coming down to at least 2 people, Mark Elrich, the current Montgomery County executive, and David Blair. You'll recall back in 2018, Blair lost by just 77 votes. So he knows in this race that every vote counts. Let's check in first with the current county executive, Mark Elrich, and see what's happening at his party. Our Colby Satterfield is at Silver Spring Restaurant with the incumbents team. How's it going there? How are people feeling? What are you hearing, Colby?
Hey, Leslie, people are feeling good. The incumbent himself just arrived a few minutes ago. Would you like to share a few words really quick?
Sure.
We're live on the air right now. How are you feeling coming in as the polls are closed and watching those numbers come in?
I'll be more interested when I start seeing voting from today coming in. There's a ton of votes out there. So it's going to be a long night. We know it's going to be 10 days or so before they have final results. So I'm settling in for a long count.
How are you guys feeling as you're settling in for that long count?
I think we're feeling okay. I mean, I had good experiences out there today at the polls where I was talking to voters. I think it's going to be a good turnout.
How have the last few weeks, do you think, played into the campaign for county executive as a whole?
We're part of the last few weeks. I mean, look, it's the dirtiest campaign anybody's ever run here. That's the simplest way to say it. I mean, major funding by developers disguising themselves as affordable housing advocates after they tried to disguise themselves as progressives, putting millions of dollars into the race. You know, it's really discouraging that you're allowed to run a race like that. If you look at my stuff, you don't see that. So this is not the good side of American politics.
Do you have any optimism? You know, talking about American politics.
Look, I got here before, and you know, nobody thought I would do it, and I feel pretty good. Like I said, I see what I see out there, you know, today at the polls is pretty positive.
It seems pretty positive here right now as well.
Yeah, well, yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, you got to hear from him yourself, Leslie. Talked with the treasurer for the campaign just a few minutes prior to speaking with the incumbent county executive as well, and he said that he is eager to get a look at those campaign finance records, specifically for the last few weeks, something they said they are sure to be getting as soon as they are able to. Of course, we will have more from here as the night goes on. I'll send it back to you guys live in Montgomery County. Colby Satterfield, WUSA 9.
Yeah, it's a big point of contention there because we know that Elrich took a lot of public funding, but his competitor has done a lot of self-funding for his campaign. So why don't we get on over there and look at his longtime competitor, David Blair, who lost to Elrich for this same seat back in 2018. Nathan Baca is at Denizens Brewing in Silver Spring. And I can't hear much behind you, Nathan, so we're going to rely on you to tell us how things are going.
Well, Leslie, I'm going to show you just the party that's going on right behind me. These are David Blair's supporters here at Denizens Brewing Company. There's energy here, the hope that they will be able to overcome the 2018 election results and come out with victory today. Joining me right now, David Blair. David, just tell me how you're feeling right now.
So we feel great. So we've been on the campaign trail for 16 months, and we could really feel all the work that we've been doing over the last 16 months. Today, when we were at the polling places and we've seen that reactions from those voters.
What was your last minute pitch to voters when you were meeting them face-to-face today?
Well, you know, so a lot of it's about the affordability of Montgomery County. And so that comes up whether it's housing affordability, the cost to live here. And so that's usually the pitch that resonates the most is how expensive Montgomery County is and what we can do to make this place more affordable for all.
Tell me about just the infrastructure and development plans you plan to bring forward for Montgomery County.
Oh, well, so we're well behind on core services, just simple things like repairing our sidewalks and our roads, our public transit. We've got to get the Purple Line completed, right? Our ride-on bus can be much more efficient than it is. And then obviously we got to fix the bottleneck at 495 at the American Legion Bridge.
And 270 as well, you support?
And 270 as well, absolutely, yes.
Tell us just, what you feel about the fact that the election results may not be finished until this weekend, potentially because of all the mail-in ballots. How do you keep the energy of your volunteers here going forward through the night and into the weekend?
Well, so unfortunately I have experience in this, right? Because 4 years ago I had to wait 2 or 3 weeks for the outcome. So we'll be patient, but we'll make sure that the crowd and we'll keep them all involved. Yeah.
Perfect. And just tell me what you hope to be able to do to work with the rest of the council as well if you are elected executive.
Oh, well, so that's going to be key, right? Because they have commitments and they have relationships, and so forming those bonds with them is going to be important, and it's going to be, I'm going to start working day one, right? So we're not going to wait until December to get this started. I'll be meeting with our council members right away.
There you go, David Blair, excited here tonight, here at Denizens Brewing in Silver Spring. It's going to be a potentially long night and going through the weekend. Reporting live in Silver Spring, Nathan Baca, WUSA 9.
And Nathan, thank you. You know, David Blair has spent the most of any candidate for county executive. All in, when you add it up, he spent about $3.35 million on this race. We'll see what happens in the coming days. All right, let's check in on some of the other races around Maryland. Evan Kozloff is keeping his eye and his pulse on those ones. Hey, Ev.
Oh yeah, Leslie, lots of big races, and so we want to jump right in and talk about Prince George's County executive race, and we're going to show you the graphic right there. And look, we don't have, we only have 6% that are reporting right now, but Angela Osselbrooks has 92% of the vote, 28,000 votes. So a good start for her, but again, it is very early. She is the incumbent. She's the former county state's attorney as well. Let's jump over now to Frederick County for the other county executive, and here's the narrative for this one. Basically, The Democrat incumbent is term limited. So 3 Democrats are duking it out for that open spot. And you can see right there with not too many votes in there. You just 1,768 is the lead there. Jessica Fitzwater has 57%. She's been a council member since 2014. She's also a local music teacher. She's been doing that for 16 years. And then in second place there, we've got Kai John Hagan, who's also an at-large member on the council. So again, way too early to call any of these. We're going to be talking about these for a while now. Let's move on now, go back to Montgomery County, and this time we're going to talk about county council. And we want to focus on District 6 and District 7. Here's why. They are newly created districts, so there's some new blood, people trying to get on the council. District 6 covers Aspen Hill, Wheaton, Glenmont. 8 candidates. 8 candidates were running for this spot. Right now, Natalie Fanny Gonzalez has 58% of the vote, 1,520 votes there, so a good start. But again, look at that top left corner. Keep your eye there. 3% reporting, so we still have a while to go there. Let's move on to District 7. This is for Sandy Spring, Olney, Montgomery Village, and Damascus. And this also, we've got 7 candidates who have been running for this one. Right now, Don Lutke has 36% of the vote. That's 825 votes, so that's a good start for her. Top left corner, 2%. So we got some time. And then lastly, before I send it back to you, Leslie, let's talk about the Montgomery County State Attorney. The incumbent here is looking to hold on as 3 challengers emerge. The incumbent is John McCarthy, and so far, so good for him. He's got 50% of the vote. They've got 9,375 votes. But I think the message of the day is that it's going to take a while before we get any final results. Leslie?
It is fascinating as these results start to come in, even as slowly as they are trickling in for sure. All right, so let's go to our John Henry, because John Henry now is covering one of the races. He is covering Glen Ivy. All right.
Yeah, this is a very interesting race here in Prince George's County, District 4. It's Prince George's County and a sliver of Montgomery County. As you said, this is Glen Ivy's headquarters. Currently, there's about 100 people down here. He has yet to come downstairs, but we're told that will likely happen soon. Now, one of the reasons this race is so interesting is because both he and Donna Edwards, the 2 top candidates in the House Democratic
All righty, so we were just talking about House District 4, which covers Prince George's County and Anne Arundel County, and this seat is to replace Anthony Brown, who is running for AG. And the AG's race, on the Republican side, you got Eric Loeb. Go back just a little bit for me so I can stay in line here. We got Eric Loeb, George McDermott, and Jeff Warner. Now, let's get to the incumbents party, the Democrats. Again, we were just hearing this conversation from John Henry. So he was at Glen Ivy's party. You got Donna Edwards, who held this seat for 9 years and then left office. Then you have Glen Ivy and Angela Angel. Again, Angel. These numbers are just coming in. 56% going to Glen Ivy. This early number here, Donna Edwards 33%, Angela Angel coming in at 5%. But again, really early numbers. All right, Evan, can I go back to you to check on some of the other congressional races?
Yeah. District 4 is going to be really interesting, but we want to focus on a few more that are going to be pretty interesting. Talking about 1st Congressional District. Let's bring up the graphic here. This is Maryland's Eastern Shore, and basically here's the narrative right now. It's a pair of Democrats looking for a chance to face Maryland's sole Republican in November, and you can see right there how it's going so far. Heather Miser, pretty good lead right there, 69%. 6,366 votes with 13% reporting. So that's the 1st Congressional District. And I think now we're going to move over to the 5th Congressional District. So let's bring that on over. This is Southern Maryland. And the narrative for this one is that we've got 2 Democrats trying to unseat a top Democrat as 7 Republicans. Actually, it looks like we have the Republicans up here. So let's talk about that for the 5th Congressional District. 7 candidates who are trying to unseat Steny Hoyer, and right now Chris Palombi is leading the way with 78%, 4,783 votes with 16% reporting. Okay, now we're going to move. I think we're going to go to the 6th Congressional District. Nope, we're going to stick with the 5th and talk about the Democrats. So let's talk about that real quick. Steny Hoyer has 74% of the vote, 13,545 votes. Again, he's the incumbent. Listen to this. He's been here for this is his 21st term, I should say. He's been here since 1981, and he's the House Majority Leader. That's the number 2 in the House. So he's got an important position right there, and it looks like right now, with 19% reporting, he's going to hold on. All right, now let's move on to the 6th district. This is part of Montgomery County in northern Maryland, and after gerrymandering made this way more competitive, as various Republicans are fighting for a chance to face the incumbent Democrat in November. So right now, let's look at the Democrats here. You can see David Trone has 82% with 3,571 votes. That's with 5% reporting. And if we now jump over to the Republican side, we'll talk about that. Right now, we're efforting it. Okay, well, we'll stick with this one here. As you can see, 82% of the vote. Again, David Trone and Ben Smilowitz has 14%, and George Gluck has 4% with 189 votes. We're going to work to get you a few more of these, but for now, Leslie, why don't I send it back to you?
That sounds good. Let's go back and check in with one of the big contenders for the Democratic nomination, and that, of course, is Peter Franchot. Our Larry Miller is with the Franchot camp, and in fact, there is the candidate himself. Larry?
Right. Absolutely, Leslie. You know, Mr. Franchot, how are you feeling? The results are starting to come in. Your thoughts about what you're seeing thus far?
Well, it's very early, and we're quietly confident that when most of the votes come in, I'm going to prevail ultimately. But right now, just the preliminary results have come in from the early voting. 200,000 people voted.
We should mention there's a little bit of a delay. They're watching us on WUSA9.com right now as we're having this interview. So, Mr. Franchot, you had the opportunity today to crisscross much of the state, talking with voters and getting out
Larry,
those.
just real quick, we can't hear Peter Franchot. Can you mic him up? Okay, team, do you want to come back to me and let's try to figure that out? We definitely want you to hear from Peter Franchot. We're going to check in and make sure we can get that all set. We're going to go to Adam Longo, who is covering one of the Republican candidates for governor. He's with the Kelly Schulz campaign. And Adam, how are things going there since we've seen you?
Good. So for the first time tonight, we have someone taking to the podium to speak. This is Dr. Jeff Wolford. He is the lieutenant governor candidate. So the other half of the Kelly Schulz for governor ticket, just making an announcement about some of the things that they're hearing about, things that are taking place in the field, things with the election judges, things about some of the returns that are coming in, and hang in and enjoy the food is what I just heard him say. So it looks like they could be in for a pretty lengthy night. We do expect Kelly Schulz, the GOP candidate for governor here in Maryland, to address her supporters and fundraisers here probably before, if not in, the 11 o'clock hour. Of course, Kelly Schulz is the Governor Hogan's choice to replace him. He, of course, is term limited after having served 2 terms. And then Dan Cox, the other Republican candidate for governor here in Maryland, the Trump-backed candidate. Now, what's interesting about this race is not only what happens tonight and whether or not, you know, it's been described as kind of this proxy battle, Maryland, a proxy battle for the country. You know, will the Trump-backed candidate or the more traditional Republican candidate win? But the big question comes, what happens next, okay? So let's just say, hypothetically, it's Dan Cox who was to win tonight. He is going to have to win over not only the Kelly Schulz Republicans, but he would have to win over as well Democrats in the state. Look, Larry Hogan did not win elected office in Maryland without getting the votes of independent and Democratic voters. So this is a Republican Party in Maryland, at least, that is very much split between these two candidates. I mean, the most recent polling we saw showed them neck and neck within the margin of error, with 50% of people saying they still hadn't made up their minds yet. So now on the other side of that coin, hypothetically, Kelly Schulz, if she emerges victorious tonight, how will she be able to reach out to those more conservative, the MAGA crowd, the Trump Republicans, and get them in her fold? And I believe Dr. Wolford is here with us now. He's going to step up and take some questions. So, Dr. Wolford, Adam Longo, we're live on WSA 9 right now. Thanks so much for taking the time. This is your first campaign for public office. I just wanted to ask you first, on a personal level, how has it been going in the lead up to today, and got any butterflies going on tonight?
No butterflies. This has been an incredible privilege to be able to come back, serve Maryland after having served the country for the last 33 years in uniform. So for me, it's just continuity of service. It's a call to service, and it's been quite an honor. It's not just the activity of going across the state and going through the motions of what you might imagine a campaign is. But I got to tell you, by the way, running for office is literally running in a campaign, especially during the parades.
Right.
But it's getting to know the people, hearing the stories, and understanding the purpose of why folks step forward to run for office. Is quite an honor. What
are your, just in the more immediate term, what is your expectations for tonight? We've been telling our audience that we fully do not expect in some of these contentious races to have a winner declared by the end of the night. Are you operating under that impression as well?
So personally, I think that's a reasonable expectation. Given, I mean, so far this evening, it's slowly trickling in. We're just starting to get the numbers. It's very, very early in the evening. And then we know that there's going to be that requirement that we might have to wait a few days to get additional results on Thursday. So I think that's a reasonable expectation.
Just as you were walking into talking with us, I was addressing our audience and talking about the challenges that we'll face whichever Republican candidate emerges victorious. Meaning, if you all succeed tonight, you've got to extend an olive branch to the Trump side of the party. And if Dan Cox were to win, he's got to reach out and ask for your support and get more moderates and independents and even Democrats to cross over.
Sure.
So moving forward, how would you do that if you win? And if you didn't, would you all support the Cox campaign?
So the way we do it is to keep doing what we've done thus far. All these issues that we're concerned about, and it's for all candidates across the state: safety, security, prosperity. It's things that are not partisan. It's not Democrat, Republican, Libertarian. So we would just stay on message. And then, of course, as a Republican, I would fall back to Ronald Reagan's 11th commandment, of course, right? And so we're in this together, but I don't mean just as partisans. I mean this as Marylanders.
And now, moving forward, should you emerge victorious tonight, I believe you know it will be a fierce battle, perhaps even an uphill battle. This is one of the states that the Democratic Party nationally has targeted as a race to flip back in their corner. So how do you overcome all of that push that they'll likely bring?
You have the right frame of mind. As a fighter pilot, I look forward to the challenge.
Dr. Wolford, appreciate you coming on with us. Thank you so much. Best of luck.
Thank you.
All right. So one other thing I wanted to mention to you is that obviously we're not going to be seeing those results tonight. 212,000 some odd mail-in ballots expected to come in that they won't even be able to start counting until Thursday. A lot more races on the line. Leslie, I know you're anxious to get a hold of those, so we'll send it back to you for now.
All right, Ads, thank you. Patience is the word. Patience is the word. We're going to go back to Larry Miller, who just finished interviewing the Democratic candidate, Peter Franchot. We had a little bit of audio issue, but Larry, we can hear you clearly. So what did Peter Franchot tell you?
Leslie, Peter Franchot told me that he is cautiously optimistic as he waits for those additional votes to come in. He feels, his campaign feels, that they have the votes to secure the Democratic nomination for governor. You know, he says, you know, we shouldn't take too much away from these early votes that are coming in that have heavily swayed toward Westmore and his campaign. They are banking on the fact, according to them, that they have run a well-fought, hard, aggressive campaign and feel that they are going to be able to pull it out in the end. The votes that they're expecting are those mail-in votes. Remember, we are expecting thousands coming from Montgomery County, Prince George's County, and Baltimore County. But the Franchot campaign as well is saying that for them, they've been making sure that they've been focusing on all those voters, because according to members in the campaign, they tell me that Franchot has a strong appeal and strong crossover with independents, with Republicans, and they feel that being able to talk to some of those voters in areas that normally don't get that sort of interaction with candidates is going to be their winning strategy moving forward. So he says right now they're waiting, but they feel they have this in the bag. Leslie?
It's a double dose of Larry. We hear you here, and then we can hear you on the big screen, the echo of Larry as everyone is starting to hear your reporting. It's always, that's one of those little things that's pretty interesting when you cover political campaigns.
Sorry about that.
A lot of fun, a lot of energy. All right, Larry, thank you. And that's it for us tonight for this special edition of WUSA 9 News. We'll be back at 11 o'clock with the latest results, the results we have. And you can always check out our website and app for more. We'll see you later. Have a good night.